Okay, so while Brittany pulls up the PowerPoint, I just want to say hello to everyone. My name is Alan, if we haven't met. I am in charge of clubs this year. Thank you guys for taking the time to attend this meeting. We'll try to get through, there's a lot of slides, but we'll try to get through them relatively quickly. I understand, I think second year SGL has a test on Friday. So we'll try to keep it relatively concise. Okay. All right. So Club Leadership Pearls 2022-2023. Next slide. Or can I control it? Or is it just, I cannot. Okay, so just a general overview of topics we're going to cover. First thing is Sewell campus engagement. Just general information about clubs, how to become a club, club requirements, STUCO general meeting dates, funding, forms and documents, reimbursements, how to, some contact information, and a brief summary at the end. Next slide, please. Okay, so, oh, also, by the way, all this information is going to get posted, so you don't have to like rush to jot this down, but this is just contact information for your STUCO, student government leaders. And so if you ever have questions, always direct them to us and we can link you to the right person in administration or just help you directly. Next. Okay, so this is a kind of a new thing that we are introducing this year. So we have put a bunch of important information in regards to clubs in this folder. So if you go on Canvas and you go to I think it's like student resources, there is a subsection that says student clubs and professional associations. Brittany like put a ton of stuff on there. So if you ever have questions about, guidelines and stuff like that, or your members want to know where the forms are, that will have literally everything. So chances are if you are looking for a form, go there and look first and you'll probably find it. And then listed are just some of the things that are on there. Next slide. Okay.
Okay, I'll jump in here, Alan. Thank you so much. Thank you, Alan, for your leadership. Looking forward to working with you this year with the clubs and groups. And like Alan said, yeah, there's a lot of stuff you're going to hear today. It's just try and absorb what you can. It's foundational. You can always come back to the video or the PowerPoint. It'll be posted on the website and on the Canvas in the coming days. And obviously, that's what we're all here for as resources, Alan, the Student Council leadership, and the Student Affairs team. So my name's Dean Machichi, Assistant Dean for Student Affairs. I wanted to start off with something new to this presentation, and that's about Sewell, the Sewell campus. So Sewell is obviously a new venture for us. We have students there. We have 72 wonderful students, and we have a beautiful campus environment with open rooms and beautiful areas to host meetings and events. So we put together some guidelines in these next two slides I want to go over and really making an appeal to the clubs about how to really include the Sewell students, because up until now we had one campus to consider and now we have two, so we have to think about things a little different. So here's just some guidelines. So first of all in-person meetings and enrichment events should be offered with a WebEx viewing option. So keep this in mind no matter what campus you're hosting your event at. And clearly the WebEx option is easy enough to do now. We're all become experts at it. And if you need help, you could always reach out to our team. Also, all WebEx meetings and events, and when I say events, I'm talking about speakers and things like that, not fundraising events or celebrations. But Meetings and speakers should be recorded and provided on request for those that were able to attend. So if you hold a meeting or a speaker event, obviously that could fall into a time when another student has a course or a class on another campus. So keep this in mind. This will just help students at all campuses keep connected. And then just final thought, and this is something new really with the way things are changing and evolving on the campuses. Lunchtime's not always the best time for all campuses anymore. So try to vary the times for your club meetings. So if you have a lunchtime meeting in August, you know, maybe your September meeting is at 5 or 6 o'clock, and then you know, back to a lunchtime, and maybe not always on a Monday or a Wednesday, but Tuesdays and Thursdays tend to be open days as well for all campuses. So keep in mind just varying things and switching them up when you can. That this will just help everyone have the ability to jump into these meetings when possible. Next slide. So we need to understand that there's no second-year students on the Sewell campus, right? So in some ways, we need to artificially uh, infiltrate that campus, and especially for this first year. So what we're doing and what we're proposing to student council, and we expect these things will go through, and we want the students to really think about this as you plan your events and meetings for this year, is that all student clubs should host one event or meeting on the Sewell campus this year. All right, and that's like the minimum, right? So in fact, we're recommending that each club should actually have one event or meeting there per semester. And to really incentivize that, we're proposing that in the year-end report for this year, that each club that hosts at least one event or meeting there would receive 1 point on the year-end report, and that additional programming can earn up to an additional second point depending upon the final guidelines. So we're going to go over a proposal with the student council at their closed meeting next week, and hopefully this all gets approved. But these are two easy points to earn. And remember, student clubs on average earn somewhere between, let's say, 4 to around 10 or 12 points during a year. So not a whole lot of points. So 2 points, easy layup for groups. Involve the students in the Sewell campus. Bring the Stratford students down to Sewell, see the campus, enjoy the campus. So we're hoping these things will help involve students at both schools. That's not to say that we don't expect the Sewell students to come to Stratford when they can as well. So we're hoping it works both ways. So that's my appeal to all the clubs, and I hope these things work. And of course, if anybody has other ideas on how to create more engagement for our Sewell students and for all of our students on both campuses, and create this, you know, one school, two campuses environment, please share. And just before I move on, and I'm not going to spend this much time on each slide, I want to just make a note that anybody who's planning an event or meeting on the Sewell campus, your first point of contact should be Brittany Mitchell, the Associate Director for Student Affairs there. She'll help you with all logistics and also the schedule. Okay, moving on. I'm sorry, next slide. So I'm just going to go over some general information so students understand how clubs exist and how they're sort of born and established in the different ways and categories that they come to form. So clubs and organizations are classified as either STUCO-based or non-STUCO-based entities. And if an organization is STUCO-based, they can be either non-funded or funded upon completion of their 2-year probation. Funded clubs must meet certain requirements to receive funding each year, and that's the year-end report that Alan will go over in a minute. And non-STUCO based organizations can really apply for other funding outside of these established funding sources. And really what a non-STUCO based organization is considered is a special interest group. Next slide. So organizations that are non-STUCO include the Rowan Community Health Center, the OMM Clinic, the Journal Club, the Music Medicine, Project Reach. These are organizations that have individual financial accounts hosted under Student Affairs or other departments, but do not have STUCO club status and do not need to go through the Student Council requirements for club status. They also do not receive annual disbursements, but they can petition STUCO for alumni grants or special funding requests. Next slide. So STUCO-based non-funded groups, I know there's a lot of semantics here. Organizations or clubs that are STUCO-based are categorized into 2 groups. Those that are established, and then the non-funded ones are those that are either inactive or probationary. So established clubs that have completed their 2-year academic probation are now receiving funds from their annual disbursements because they met the requirements and they've submitted their year-end reports. Established inactive clubs do not receive STUCO funding until their status changes. And that's the same thing with clubs that are on probation. Inactive clubs can petition for STUCO grants or special project funding requests, as can probationary clubs. Next slide. Funded clubs that have completed the 2-year academic requirements will receive funding every year. And for those of you that are on established clubs, which is pretty much everyone on this call, you'll be getting your disbursement reports sometime later this month. We did all the year-end report tallying, and Stephanie will be submitting those funding requests very soon. All clubs who meet the minimum year-end requirements will receive funding. Clubs may be eligible for additional funding, and that's based on the year-end reports, where you can earn additional funding based on the number of community service, student service, and other events. And Alan will talk a little bit more about this in a moment. Next slide. Okay, how to become a club. I'm just going to go over this real quick. For those of you that are interested in starting either a new club or interest group, first step is really to meet with me. And the reason why is to discuss your idea and concept for 3 possible reasons. One is can it exist under a already established group? That's the first question we would look at and ask. The other question is, does it exist as an inactive group that you may not be aware of, something that could be activated pretty quickly through STUCO? And the third is, does it have to be an established group, or could it be a special an interest group or a club that does not require funding? So these are the conversations we would have before going down the route of becoming a STUCO established club. To become a STUCO-based club, you would require to have a constitution, a petition of at least 5% of the student body, and those documents would then be submitted to Alan and the secretary for STUCO to be presented at a future STUCO meeting. Next slide. Once your paperwork's submitted and approved and reviewed by that group, myself, Alan, the secretary, you would be invited to a future STUCO meeting. You would be given 3 minutes to present your club idea to the STUCO leadership. This usually happens at the closed portion of the STUCO meeting, and the STUCO officers would often ask questions about your club and purpose and goals, and then they would vote to approve or deny your request. Next slide. Once a club is approved, they're actually put on automatic probationary status, and that means for 2 years that group would be established but not funded. So they would be like recognized as a group, but not part of the funding pool, and they would be expected to submit year-end reports and fulfill the requirements of an established club to show that they can become sustainable. And then after two academic calendar years, the student council would vote to make the club fully established, and then they would be qualified and eligible for funding at that point. Next slide. If a club, a student came and was interested in reactivating an established inactive club, the steps are very similar in terms of resubmitting a constitution and petition and demonstrate that the club is active again. Same steps as far as emailing the first vice president and secretary and making the presentation. But at this point, it would then be voted to become automatically activated with STUCO's approval. Any inactive club that becomes active again, the student leadership group that would become the leaders of that would also inherit the previous budget that was funded from that group from when it became inactive. So those monies would become available to that group if it were to become activated again. So there's about 5 or 6 or 7 groups, Stephanie would know, clubs that are previously established that are now inactive. And that's everything about creating clubs, interest groups, or inactive clubs that you'd want to make active again. So I'm going to kick it back to Alan to talk about club requirements.
Okay, club requirement details. Next slide. So just a little bit of a background. So all of the clubs will submit a year-end report, and basically that will kind of summarize all the points that you've earned over the year. And a lot of this is pretty much used to determine like the funding that clubs receive. And funding for clubs is really important because at its core, clubs are here to support students, students that want to go present research, go network at, large national conferences. Like all these things require money. And so as a club, the more funding you can get, the more you can support students. And I think ultimately that's should be the goal of every club. So just to get into some specifics, as you can see, we have a table laid out for you guys for how many points each type of event will earn you, and then how many number of events that will be required. Dean, do you feel strongly about me reading this? I feel like all of our student leaders can.
No, that's fine. Yeah,
I feel like they're all
Mr.
really good at reading, so I think
Very good.
I will delegate them to read that on their own. But just make sure you guys take a look at these point categories and keep track of the events you guys are holding so that you guys are meeting these requirements. Next slide. Okay, the next slide is just more point information. So we'll keep going. Next slide. Oh, yeah, so just more categories. So just make sure you guys are really looking over all these categories and making sure that, you guys are planning accordingly to touch each of these. and earn points. Next slide. And next slide. So what we have is just a template for the year-end report. Again, I understand that this is at the end of the academic year, but right now we just want to show you guys what it looks like. Next slide. And it just kind of has all the categories for you guys to fill out. Next slide. And then here's like how the events are logged. And Dean Machichi, correct me if I'm wrong, they can enter multiple of these, I'm assuming.
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Yep. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. That's something you'll come back to at the end of the year. So yeah, next slide. Okay, so STUCO general meeting attendance. So as you all know by now, STUCO meets once a month. And for those of you who haven't been or don't really remember, it kind of runs where the deans will come in or special guests, and they'll kind of give us a breakdown of some of the ongoing like current events related to school or related to the profession. So it could really be, important information on multiple levels. So they'll come and give us a little presentation. This year, since we are somewhat through the pandemic, knock on wood, we are bringing back having representatives from each club attend just the open portion meeting. So that's the first hour of STUCO meetings. And the reasoning behind this is kind of to ensure that, there are members of the student body that are kind of getting news directly from administration. I know that in the past couple of years, one of the biggest problems is communication between students and administration. So this, in our opinion, is a direct way for students to kind of engage with administration. So we are bringing that back. I know I've gotten questions about if one person can represent multiple clubs, and the answer is yes, but that person needs to be on the e-board for both clubs. You can't just be a member of 10 clubs and represent 10 clubs. So make sure that person is on the e-board. And attendance will be tracked at the beginning of each meeting. Next slide. Here we have the dates. I know last month the email is a little bit late, but I will be sending reminders for these meetings the Wednesday before, so that's tomorrow, and that's also the deadline for submitting paperwork for travel, I believe, or expenses. I think it's the Wednesday before the meeting. So yeah, so next week, September 20th, will be our STUCO meeting. Next slide, please. And then at the end of STUCO, we're near the end, there's always an open mic session. So that's a great time for any of our student leaders to ask questions, and the deans will still be there to, address whatever question you have, or they'll find out, whatever information you're seeking and get back to you. Next slide. Lounge cleaning. So past couple of years, not as many students were on campus. I know a lot of current second years were on campus more so. For us, first year, we weren't really there at all. So we are kind of re-implementing lounge cleaning. So we'll be creating a schedule. It's nothing crazy. You don't have to like scrub every corner, but just kind of try to maintain general cleanliness of the lounge for the rest of our student body. Next slide, please. Okay, club closet rules. So there is a club storage space, and that's in the UEC 1091 on the first floor. Just kind of a general reminder to make sure everything's organized and to not leave things lying around. And you have to store everything inside your dedicated space. Yes, if you don't keep your space organized, you could have your funding reduced. So Dean Machichi will come find you and hand you a club funding reduction paper. So you don't want that. And again, it's located in UEC. So if you haven't been there, go take a look and see what you guys got. Next slide.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie. I am the Management Assistant for Student Affairs and Alumni Engagement. And I'm very happy to talk with you this evening about some frequently asked questions that you have regarding reimbursements and student travel and all that good stuff. So next slide, please. So applying for funding from STUCO. So in order to apply for funding from STUCO, you're going to need to complete a form based on why you are applying for funding. So all the funding forms can be found on the STUCO website, and the link is right here. You must submit these forms to the president, treasurer, secretary, and me by 5 p.m. the Wednesday before the STUCO meeting. Now, funding cannot be granted retroactively. If you are a club or organization interested in receiving funding to travel, you must fill out the document labeled STUCO Funding Request, Conference Travel and Programs. And if you need to receive funding for a special project and/or event, you can submit for funding by filling out the funding request form labeled STUCO Special Projects Funding Requests. Next slide, please. So another option for you to receive funding is through an alumni grant, which is a $250 grant. It can be only awarded to a club once an academic year. The requirements of this grant is that the event and/or program or community service must be made available to all the students. The funds cannot be used for conference or travel-related expenses. That's very important. So please fill out and submit an SOM alumni grant request form to be considered for the seed funding. And you must submit this form to the STUCO president, treasurer, secretary, and me. My email is levins@rowan.edu. Next slide, please. So here are the frequently used online forms and documents. We had to update them, so Dean Machichi and I have been working on this for the past couple of months, as accounts payable is often changing their policies and procedures, and I will update them on an annual basis. They were very out of date and obsolete, so instead of all of you searching for these documents and going to the travel department or another department or the vendor department, I decided to put all the documents on the STUCO website. It's easy access for you. Next slide, please. Professional travel. Next slide, please. Travel forms. So for pre-travel, so students planning to travel for professional development, such as research, leadership, club-related, medical missions, etc., they need to complete and submit the travel request form and travel waiver 14 days prior to travel. At one point, it was 30 days prior to travel. It is now 14 days prior to travel. So these documents need to be submitted to me at the Office of Student Affairs. You can just email them to me. So, for example, if your travel is on October 20th, then you would submit your paperwork no later than October 6th. If a student organization or club is planning to attend any meeting or conference, the club's president should submit a list of potential attendees to me as early as possible. The sooner the better. And then I will inform you of the pre-travel requirements. I'll be sending out an email with the travel waiver. We have a pretty little travel flyer, and we also have all the travel request forms and travel expense forms. So post-travel. So once the travel has been completed, you need to submit a travel expense form and include receipts to me within 10 business days of travel to receive reimbursement. So these forms must be submitted with all information completed, including your name, address, your ID number, your banner ID number, and the purpose of your trip. So the receipts are required for acceptable expenses to cover your eligible reimbursement amount. So the amount that you've been approved by STUCO to receive. Now, I cannot stress this enough, as I really want to reimburse all of you. Please use your own credit or debit card when making purchases for your trip. Any expenses that were not paid for with a Rowan SOM student credit or debit card, it's not going to be accepted. And I really do not like saying no to all of you, and I want to reimburse you. So please use your own credit and debit card. Next slide, please. Submitting a reimbursement. Next slide. So Rowan University Accounts Payable Department, they've been enforcing stricter guidelines when it comes to student reimbursements. If you need to make a purchase or if you need supplies for an event, please send the Amazon links to me at levins@rowan.edu to be purchased via your club account. So student supply orders, they must be received 10 days before the date that the supplies are needed. So food purchases under $100, it can be reimbursed through your club account. Now, there's this new policy that accounts payable is kind of enacting. There's food purchases over $100. We need to go through the gourmet dining waiver process, but there is more to come on this, so please stay tuned. Gift cards are not reimbursable through Rowan University. If you want to be reimbursed for a gift card, unfortunately, we're not able to do that for you. There's a lot of red tape that goes along with that, and it's a very, very long process. So they're not reimbursable through Rowan. So if you're unsure about a purchase or want to confirm if a purchase is reimbursable, please contact me and I'll answer any questions and I'll be happy to assist you in any way that I can. Next slide, please.
That's why I joined this. I saw that.
For eligible reimbursements, please fill out the form titled Student Reimbursement Request Form and provide a copy of your itemized receipt showing the last 4 digits of your credit card. When you submit your credit card to me, please don't submit the credit card with your full number showing, your credit card number showing. Just show only the last 4 digits and your name. That's required for reimbursement, is for protection purposes. Just showing the last 4 digits and your name. All Rowan SOM students, they must purchase these items using their own, again, credit and debit card. Payments made by parents, partners, or friends' credit or debit card, it's not going to be accepted for reimbursement. Next slide.
Okay, everyone, so now we're going to kind of go through the how-tos of planning your events. This is probably where a lot of our questions come in, the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of your planning. So I'm pretty sure I've probably met all of you at this point, but for those of you that may not know me, my name is Brittany Quintana. I'm the program development specialist for student affairs, so I would be the person to assist you with all of the things that we're about to go through. So starting from the very beginning in terms of your event planning process, we want to kind of make it simple for you. So you're going to start out with your event details. This is obviously simple: date, time, and location. Obviously, this is just a starting point, keeping in mind that, you know, once we kind of go through the other steps, your date may change, things like that, but perfectly fine. You want to obviously have a place to start. Moving forward, you will submit your student club event submission form. This is a process that was enacted as a result of COVID, and I think we can safely say it is here to stay. So this is something that you should always be planning to do moving forward. You want to be able to allow 5 to 10 days for approval. To be clear, we are not the department that is approving the events. As much as we would love to be the department approving the events, we are not. So keep in mind that this is something that we say allow 5 to 10 days because it's completely out of our control. Some days you'll get approval back the next day, and other days it takes longer. So we just want to be sure that you're giving yourself enough time in your planning, because when we get to promoting, you really want to be promoting only events that are approved. So you should really build a lot of time into submitting that event form and getting the process started. Moving forward, if your event is in person, obviously you can do in person or virtual. Obviously, you would submit a room request form. I want to be clear that these are 2 different processes. So while you will be indicating on the club event submission form what room you might want to utilize, you will actually have to formally go in and submit a room request. And I would tell you that really, while they're listed as 2 and 3, you could really do these things simultaneously to kickstart those processes. And then once we have approval and you have a confirmed room request, if your event is in person, you can move forward to promotion of your event, which can be done via a few different avenues that we will talk about tonight. But again, you really want to wait to promote your event until you have that final approval from university events. So this is kind of covering the first step, that student event submission form. So again, this was brought into play as a result of COVID, and moving forward, this is something that will remain as an item that you will want to do. So all of your events, whether they are virtual, hybrid, or in person, should be submitted via that form. What happens is I then take that information and submit it to university events on main campus for final approval. So again, since you want to have that approval, please, I stress to allow yourself plenty of time. You can also submit for multiple dates. So if you know that every month your event, club has a certain type of event, you can submit for multiple dates throughout the year, and then you're done. You can have your submission done and then save yourself a little bit of time in the end. But just please be sure to give yourself ample time moving forward. So this is the actual link to the club event submission form. By completing this form, you're kind of kickstarting a few different things. So obviously you have started the process to obtain final approval from university events. Once that event is approved, it will automatically be populated to the STUCO calendar, and then you can go back and access that calendar when it comes time for the end of the year reports that Alan discussed, to be able to kind of review if you want to check and see what type of events you might have done or not done. If you forget anything, you can always refer back to the calendar as a refresher. You can always access this form on the Sunday News and every edition of the Sunday News, as well as on Canvas in the Student Clubs and Professional Associations folder. So one thing that I kind of want to highlight about using the STUCO calendar is it's really twofold. So one, obviously here is the link for you to be able to access that. But again, this is approved events. So there might be things that are on certain dates and times, but because we haven't received approval, they are not formally added to the calendar. We encourage you to check the calendar regularly for two different reasons. One being, obviously, that can help you in your club planning so that you can determine the best date and time to schedule your event. Obviously, if you're scheduling your event at a time that there's already another large club event going on, or multiple club events going on, clearly that could not only hinder your own attendance, but the attendance to the other club events. So we just kind of want to be mindful of that. But you can also check the calendar personally just to see what's going on campus, what events you might want to attend yourself, and what other clubs you might want to check out. So again, a link to the calendar is included in each edition of the Sunday News and the weekly wellness resources newsletter to help promote events. And again, you can access the link to the calendar in the Canvas folder for student clubs and professional associations. In regards to requesting AV and print support, I will preface this by saying most rooms that all of you utilize for events already have access to a projector, laptop, computer, microphone. All of those things, for the most part, are already in all of the rooms that you guys traditionally use in the academic center. But in the off chance you do need any additional AV equipment for your event that is not already provided to you in the room that you are choosing to use, you can shoot me an email and we will be able to get a request put in for you. Similarly, if you are looking for any design or print work to be done, if you are looking to design a flyer for your event, if you want to have a poster printed for your event, anything like that, you can submit your request to me and we will get that submitted for final submission. This is a little bit different of a process now that there is an additional form that needs to be filled out by our office. So this is a process that you want to start with us. You would not be submitting this on your own anymore. To be clear, there are no costs associated with design work. So if you are looking to design a flyer and design is not your forte, you don't have to stress. We have people that can help you do that. Obviously, there are costs associated with printing requests, and those costs will come directly from your club account, so you don't have to worry about going through the reimbursement process or anything of the sort. Please be sure to allow at least 5 business days for any of these kinds of requests. Anything submitted under that, especially something that is, has a charge, could result in a late fee, or obviously it could just mean that your request is denied. So please be sure to allow at least 5 days for any requests of this nature. To reserve a room, you will utilize the link here. It is accessible on the STUCO website, as well as in the form itself that you will need to fill out. It'll link to it twice. Again, this is a completely separate request process from submitting the club event form. We do ask that you allow at least 2 weeks prior to your event for this. I want to be very clear that I know that last minute things come into play, and we try to help you as best as we can with last minute requests. But the timeline to request a room for us has changed. So we are physically incapable of requesting a room if the request comes in less than 5 days out from the date that you're looking to submit for. So very, very important. And I will also stress that rooms are at a premium at this point. Space is very, very limited on campus. We've worked with some clubs who have pushed their events back as much as 2 weeks just to be able to find space that'll work for their event. So anytime you can request rooms ahead of time, the better. You want to be sure to give as much information in the information box on the request form as possible. We are looking to update this form a little bit, but you can always use the information box to be able to give us specific details. If there's a specific room that you're looking for, but there are other rooms that you'd be interested in, if the initial room you want is unavailable, that information is very helpful, because if the room is already booked, we can quickly jump to reserve another room for you. And often students tend to want to change the room versus worrying about changing the date and time. So any information you can plug in, very, very helpful. You can use this link here for 25 Live, which you can also access on the SOM website, to be able to check what rooms are available. The request does have to come through our office, but you can utilize this link to at least check what might be available, keeping in mind that just because it appears that it's available doesn't mean that it necessarily is. Sometimes if another reservation is put in but not confirmed, you won't see it. But it would prevent us from being able to put in for it, obviously. Your room will not be considered reserved until you receive an email confirmation from Naomi in our office. The actual confirmation can take up to 72 hours to be processed. And again, because these processes are two completely different processes, I want to be clear that an approval of a room reservation does not signify that your event was approved from University Events, and vice versa. You receive two completely different confirmation emails regarding these two different processes. Regarding student club tabling, if you are interested in just setting up a table in the atrium to pass something out, have a little event in the atrium, so to speak, where obviously you might need a little bit of a setup, you'll want to submit an email to Naomi Mastrocola to be able to set up in Stratford, or you will submit an email to Brittany Mitchell to be able to set up in Sewell if you want to kind of set up in that student lounge area. Please be sure to, again, allow at least 5 business days notice so that we can be sure to get these requests in with enough time for scheduling purposes. As a note, I know that the Stratford campus, at least in the academic center, there's traditionally a table and chairs permanently set in that area, but I would not rely on that. If that's something that you know that you need on a certain day, please be sure to still send an email regardless, so that we can be sure to put in a request just to be safe. In terms of large meetings, events, and conferences, so any extensive setups, if you really have to promote your event in a much larger way, you need to put in a large catering order, anything like that, you will work with me for that, or Brittany if you're interested in hosting any larger scale events on the Sewell campus. And we will go over a few of these details a little bit more. In regards to food orders, again, if you want to do an internal food order, which is done through gourmet dining, you will come through myself for an order on the Stratford campus, or Brittany Mitchell for an order on the Sewell campus. This will come directly out of your club funds. I will say, obviously, gourmet dining, which is the company that operates Top Docs, tends to be a little pricier, but keep in mind that it's also making things a lot easier for you. You don't have to go to the restaurant to pick up food. You don't have to worry about any of those extra items. All of that is taken care of. As Stephanie did mention, there is technically the formal process that external orders are capped at $100. So technically any external food order over $100 would need pre-approval before purchasing. So if you were going to order from Panera, Chipotle, pizza, whatever it is, you might want to order. Technically, you would need to go through that approval process for the waiver. Again, we are kind of in conversation with this, so more to come on this. But still something that you can moving forward, you can check with us just to be sure so that we're doing everything appropriately. One food order that is kind of blanket approved is pizza. It's something that gourmet dining just can't make work in Stratford or Sewell. So that is something that you can safely, order and not really have to worry about it, which is great because I know many of you order that anyway. Just so you know, we do have an approved vendor for pizza. So if you have enough time and you have ample notice, you can also do a purchase order for that to be able to have those funds come directly through your account versus having to pay out of pocket. So just something to keep in mind when you're planning your food orders, and anytime you're unsure, you can contact Stephanie for more information. Just a brief highlight of this. I know obviously we're 2 years into COVID, so we're pretty familiar with WebEx at this point, but just to quickly highlight, if you are having a virtual event versus in person, the difference between meetings versus webinars. So we are currently in a meeting right now. If we were not sharing a PowerPoint, you would see all 100 and some odd of our screens. But that is obviously an easier format if you want to have simple conversation, if you want to be able to interact easier. Whereas WebEx webinars is really great if you want to highlight the speakers and only kind of allow interaction via those submitted questions. Things have gotten much easier since 2020. These can both be easily set up on your WebEx dashboard. So nothing to be concerned about, but in the off chance that you do have any questions regarding WebEx, you can always contact me and I should be able to assist you. But again, we've come a long way, and webinars pretty much operate exactly the same as meetings. And I know that most of you do not have any problems with this anymore, so you should be fine, but you can always contact me with any questions. Regarding your event promotions, you can utilize Sunday News, but we really want you to think carefully about utilizing Sunday News, or think carefully about using Sunday News, excuse me. That's for my next slide. I can see it ahead of me. So Sunday News is definitely your best form of promotion for your events. You'll always want to submit your information to the STUCO secretary, so that is BOMIC. You'll always want to do that by 5 p.m. on Saturday before the email would go out. So basically the day before. You can always include an image in JPEG form if you would want to include a flyer. This would be a great way if you are wanting to promote your event, you're promoting your club meeting, fundraiser, anything of the sort. You can also utilize Facebook to communicate these things. And then obviously it'll also be included on the calendar. As a reminder, we really want you to stick to Sunday News for these types of announcements, not something that you would want to be able to send out via the email lists. We have made exceptions for certain types of promotions, and any of those should be submitted to Dean Machichi. But for any type of club announcements, we really encourage you to go through Sunday News as your quickest avenue of promotion. Auto mail, this is where I was saying you want to really think about what you are promoting. So generally speaking, you should utilize Sunday News, Facebook pages, etc., to be able to communicate your events, whereas an auto mail is really reserved for something that you want to promote to the entirety of the SOM campus. So this is including not just students, but faculty, staff, and as well as the GSBS students. And they would be handled on a case-by-case basis. So if this is something that fits the bill for your event, you will email me a short write-up. So basically the who, what, where, when, why of your event, so that we can get it formatted for final submission. As a note, any attachments that you want to include, so if you have a flyer or anything like that, you will be encouraged to upload that to Google Drive and then hyperlink that within the body of the email. Attachments are not included on auto mails, and you should do this at least 5 days prior to the day that you want the email sent. Again, just really be cautious about how often you're looking to utilize an auto mail. I know several students will say, oh, it's not a problem if staff show up. But we really ask you to kind of think about the content of your event and what you're promoting, and really think about where your target audience is going to be before submitting for an auto mail. We do also have access to TV monitor announcements, something that is very slowly coming back now that we have more students on campus. But you can utilize the TV monitors that are in the buildings to promote your events. So again, you will reach out to me with a brief description of your announcements. If you're using text, it's limited to 10 to 15 words, or we can have a graphic created with, that follows your flyer, or, can just be created with a little bit of text that you might provide. And then we will just need to know which buildings you would like your announcement placed between the academic center, the UEC building, Rowan Medicine, the admissions building, or the Sewell campus, and when you would like the announcement to run. Announcements can run for a maximum of 2 weeks. So I ask that you do this at least 3 weeks prior to your event, especially if you are looking to have assistance with a graphic design, because obviously that takes time as well before it will get submitted to run on the TV monitor. So again, something to think about. This would be something that you want to promote to the entirety of the SOM campus. Requesting an imprint or logo design. I know several clubs decide to do fundraisers for apparel. So anytime you are looking to get anything with the logo printed on it or any kind of design printed on it, you will need to get approval from the marketing department. You can email Julia in marketing for this, as well as copying Jerry Carey from marketing and Dean in our office. Julia will kind of walk you through the specifics of what is needed. She can also assist you with a design that does meet the marketing requirements. So again, not something that you have to struggle to try to put together. She can certainly assist you with this. I will say the requirements are pretty strict. So Julia is always the best place to start in terms of finding out what works, what does not, and possibly even having her help you with a design. You should not be placing any orders for anything with any kind of designs on it without having that approval. And just as a note, that even though a design was approved in the past, we have had design requirements changing, so that does not necessarily mean that it is approved now. So always be sure to check with marketing just to be safe before having anything printed. Another thing we get a ton of questions about is hosting a collection or drive. So if you're looking to collect items for a fundraiser or something like that, you can reach out to Naomi in our office to request collection bins. I will say you should provide at least 1 week's notice, but I will say the requests are on a first come, first serve basis, and they really are very frequent. So the bins are often reserved for weeks in advance. So I would really say this is also something that you really want to plan ahead. You may have dates in mind, but unfortunately, to ensure that every club is getting, equitable access to the bins, and we're not, running competing collections, we do limit collections to 1 club at a time. Bins will be placed in the UEC first floor lobby, as well as the academic center atrium, and they can also be placed on the Sewell campus in the student lounge. Collections will run for no more than 2 weeks in total. Your collection will always start on a Monday and end on a Friday, so it'll either run for essentially 5 business days or 10 business days. The club representatives will be responsible for properly labeling the bins and actively checking the bins to make sure that your items aren't overflowing or anything of that nature, where somebody might get discouraged from donating, not knowing what to do with it. I always say you can easily have a sign printed through our media department, as I talked about earlier, those print requests for just $4 to put on the bins, and they really stand out a lot more than just a black and white Word document. I will say the bins are just cleaned out recycling bins, so they're often very easily mistaken for actual recycling bins. So that having that color sign really does help, but you would fully be responsible for ensuring that those bins are labeled first thing Monday morning. Once your collection is over, we ask on that Friday that you go clean out any items that might be remaining and remove the signage that you have put up to be cleaned out for the following Monday, as likely there is another club utilizing the bins for a collection. In terms of wellness initiatives, we also just want to touch on this as obviously Brittany showed us with her puppy. We always have a lot of fun and exciting events to, promote wellness and well-being. So we do have pet therapy, which is always exciting. We have a few different events. We just had our field day recently, but we really want to mention this to be sure that you are aware that there's also opportunities to collaborate with the wellness committee. So you can certainly do so. You would fill out the same event approval process and just select wellness event at the end there to be able to collaborate. And if you have any questions about collaborating on wellness programs, you can reach out to Brittany Mitchell at the Sewell campus or Alexa Scott on the Stratford campus for more information and assistance with that. And just lastly, some key contacts for student affairs. So again, I will be your contact for university events and Stratford-based events. Brittany will be your contact. Brittany Mitchell. You can always call Brittany for student events. Brittany Mitchell will be your contact for wellness programming, student health insurance, Sewell events, and university events. So anything Sewell-based, if there's a takeaway, Brittany Mitchell is your contact there. Alexis is your contact for Stratford wellness events, student health insurance, social media, and the yearbook. Stephanie is your contact for anything finance related, reimbursements, travel. Any questions you have about your club funding, you can reach out to Stephanie. And lastly, Naomi will be your contact for any room or table reservations, the club leadership directory. So if any of your club leadership changes, to email her for an update, as well as if you need to purchase a white coat. And obviously any of us are here to assist you. So if you ever have any questions, you're not sure who to reach out to, you can always contact any one of us, Alan, Dean, and any of us will be able to properly direct you to the right person. And now I'm just going to pass it along to Alan for some final closeout notes.
Okay, super quick summary. So keep Sewell campus in mind. We want to collaborate between two campuses, make room reservations, make sure to check the STUCO calendar for events, promote your club and events on Sunday News and Facebook pages. This one's really important. Please go check your club storage area so that all clubs can have space. So just put that on your to-do list in the next week or so. And also keep all those STUCO requirements in mind, and so that you guys can meet all of those. As always, you can always email me. I've given you guys all your phone number, all of you my phone number, so feel free to text me. And next slide. Contact Stephanie for your finances. She's really helpful. She's pretty much held my hand through all the processes because I'm foolish and don't know things. But yeah, she's really nice. She'll help you out. Submit your travel forms 14 days prior and 10 days to submit your travel expense form. Stephanie can also help you with Amazon expenses. So you have like a free personalized like Amazon shopping assistant pretty much. And again, always contact me if you have questions. Next slide. For those of you who aren't in the GroupMe, please join the GroupMe, or if you're, yeah, so please join. You can use that QR code, and I just put the attendance sheet in the chat, so please fill that out so that we can mark you guys down for attending. That is the end.
Thank you, everyone. If anybody has any questions, happy to answer them offline. Like I said, this recording will be available. Thank you again.